everyone, it's Kerry back with you today. I've been creating these scrappy paper frames using lots of scraps and bits and pieces from my scraps box, brown paper and book pages, and I thought I'd show you how I've created them today. Now, I started creating these when I found some of these sort of plain Polaroid type frames in one of my drawers, and it wasn't very exciting to look at just as it was, so I thought I'd fiddle around with some scraps and try and dress it up a little bit. And I really like the way that they have come out. I think they look a lot more interesting like that. Of course, you can make them any different size, and to make it a little bit easier if you want to create some for yourself, we've got a freebie template in the shop which has just got some frames. Now these have been designed purposely joined together because it makes it easier to cut them apart, but also if you want to, you could just cut along this line and fold in the middle, and then you could have a double-sided frame if you wanted to. And we've got those in 3 different sizes. So you can pop along to the shop and grab those. I'll leave the link below. But for the purpose of today's video, I'm just going to show you using one of these frames that I had from my drawer. So I've just got a couple of the frames here in front of me, and then off to the side I've got a book that's got some pages with interesting sort of different styles and types of fonts. And then I've got just a little box of other sorts of paper scraps. So these frames have got sort of a coloured side and then just a plain white side. I'm going to turn them upside down, and then we'll work on the larger one first. I'm just going to take some scraps from my box here. So I'm going to work upside down on my frame so that when I turn it over, the frame is still visible from the front. And I'll start by taking, this is that page that's got sort of all the different types of text. And it's got some numbers down here that I want to have some of. So I have some numbers, and it's got this list of names. And I'm not going to worry about anything that's hanging inside the frame because we're only going to be left with what's on the outside. And I want to try and make it so that my text or my font is straight or horizontal to my frame. I don't really want to have it angular. So I've got some scrap glue paper here, and I need to remember that whatever I want to show on the front, I need to make sure that I'm attaching that face down because we're working upside down. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue on here, and I'm just using a glue stick for this part, and I don't need much. I'll probably sew over the top afterwards, but if you don't want to sew, just make sure you've got a good amount of glue, and you can always go back in afterwards and touch up if you've got any bits that haven't glued down properly. Now I want to have these hanging a little bit off the top of my frame and also off the side of my frame. I'm not worried about the bits that are hanging in the middle because I can trim those off later. So I'm going to attach it like that, and I'm trying to make sure that my text here is horizontal to my frame so that it looks like it's straight. Now I'm just going to lift that up so I don't glue it down to my desk. And then I might take this piece here, some glue on the side here. I'll pop that bit down there. So I'm just working on enlarging the base of the frame at the moment. I've got this piece of German book page here. Might add a little bit on the edge. And I've got it hanging down off the bottom of the frame here as well. Just lift that up. I should probably be doing this on some baking paper actually. There we go. It's not going to stick quite so easily to the baking paper. So I've got this little piece of paper here that's sort of got some numbers and these lines here, but I don't want this straight edge on the top of my frame, so I'm just going to tear that a little bit. Got some paper here that was left over from one of Tracy Fox's digis. So I'll just tear the white edges off. And again, I'm still just working on enlarging the frame. Then if I put that down the bottom, that'll work. Alright, so now I've enlarged the edge of my frame quite a bit. I'm going to turn it over. You can see we've still got our frame at the front here, but we've got all this extra real estate on the outside now. So I'll just fold that over where it's a bit sticky. What I want to do is trim this part off on the inside where we've overlapped the frame. So it's probably easier to sit this aside and let it dry before you want to cut out the insides. But for the purpose of the video, I'm just going to go ahead and cut the overhang off now. Okay, so now I've got my basic frame shape, and I'm actually happy with the way that looks. I don't think it looks too bad, but I want to give it just a little bit more interest, and I don't like this bit down here, so I'm just going to tear that little extra bit off. This is still a bit tacky. And then this bit hasn't adhered down, so I'll just use a little bit of glue to stick that down. And then I don't really like this bit on the side here either that's hanging off. I'll just tear that bit off as well. Now the rest of it I'm quite happy with, so I would like to go in and embellish the frame a little bit, and I've got some Tracy Fox labels here, so I'll just have a look through and see what I feel like putting on. Might put that there, and could pop that one up there. I think that'll do. A bit of art glitter glue for this one. Now if you've got bits that are hanging into your frame, for example if I wanted to put that up here, just make sure that when you glue it down, whatever you're gluing or wherever you're putting this to dry, it isn't going to adhere to the back. So I've got some extra glue there. I'll leave it to dry on the baking paper, but you can embellish them as much as you like. If you're going to sew on them, let them dry, let the glue dry completely before you go ahead and sew on them. So on this one I've popped some sewing here and here. So something else you might like to try using the freebie template is to get a piece of paper that you've already printed on with a design. So I've printed Tracy Fox's Pretty Patchwork papers onto this page, and then I've run it back through my printer a second time and printed the freebie on the back. So then I have nice pretty frames that I can cut out. Now when you cut out your frames, I've just used a craft knife and a ruler and cut around the edge, and then also done the same to cut around the inside. If you find it difficult to cut around the inside, you can just use a pair of scissors and cut through the edge of the frame like I have here, cut around the inside of the frame, and then when you glue your pieces of scrap paper around the edges, just make sure that's lined up again, and you'll never know that that's what you did to cut the middle part out. here's the one that we made earlier on, and I've just gone ahead and added a little bit of stitching to the frame, and that's finished that one off. And here's a couple that I've created in the same manner, but I've used a decorative frame instead of the plain frame. On these ones, I've also added some faux stitching using a stamp. Now, I don't know the name of the stamp that I have, but there are lots of stamps that you can get that have faux stitching both in straight and zigzags type stitching, and they look just as effective as the real stitching. So I had lots of fun using up book pages and bits and pieces of scraps to make these scrappy frames. Don't forget to pop over to the shop and grab your copy of the freebie. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you again next time. Bye.